What if the secret to achieving your biggest goal isn't more effort, but removing the invisible enemy sabotaging your focus? Right now, 1.7 million men worldwide are staring at a screen, half writing an email, half listening to their kids' piano practice, fully believing they're multitasking. But science confirms that this split focus isn't productivity, it's slow motion collapse. Welcome to a conversation that's about to fracture everything you think about success. Tonight on The Hearts of Men, we're dissecting why 82% of ambitious men report their proudest achievements left someone they love stranded. Imagine this: every time you switch contexts between provider and partner, your brain hemorrhages 23 minutes of mastery, equivalent to torching $1.3 million annually if you're an entrepreneur. Yet we keep playing economic Jenga with our souls, stacking priorities until the towers crumble. Einstein once said, no problem can be solved from the same consciousness that created it. So why are we still trying to balance competing interests with the same fractured mindset? Well, here's a silent killer no one admits. Your brain treats unresolved conflicts like 47 open browser tabs, each one quietly draining your random access memory of purpose. In this episode, we're cracking open the five illusions that keep high achievers chronically stuck. You'll hear why Warren Buffett's 25 and 5 rule isn't about focus, it's about funeral planning for your version of yourself you're sacrificing. We'll dissect a 2024 study proving that 68% of men abandon dreams not from failure, but from unspoken loyalty to who they used to be or possibly who someone else wants them to be. By the end, you'll know why Maya Angelou's warning, people forget what you did, but remember how you made them feel, becomes a self fulfilling prophecy for men chasing legacy, leaving you to answer one haunting question. If every competing priority vanished tomorrow, would the person left standing even recognize himself? Let's begin. So, as we always do, I like to start off a particular type of way, but before doing so, I want to make sure that everybody understand this network is called Empowering Perspectives for a reason. So with that being said, I want to make sure that everybody's thoughts, questions, and so forth and so on they're welcome. So share them. Ask questions, share your thoughts about what we're talking about, because at the end of the day, I believe that everybody is a functional part of the show. And I think that's how we get closer to what is true when you get to the point of triangulating perspectives. So be sure to add your thoughts in the chat, ask questions, because you guys know I tear a whole show up just to make sure that we answer the question. So the question that I want to kickstart this conversation off with is, how would you describe competing interests, and what are some examples that support your definition?
Man, when I was looking over the questions, I got stuck right here at the very first question, the intro question, because my mind goes into three different spaces, right? Uh, all may not be in the context that this conversation is going, but you know, I think of the grass is greener concept, right? I think of that sometimes because we're talking about competing, especially when you use the term competing interest, right? Because sometimes we shift our interest to something that seems better than where we are and what we have. Um, and some example, and this is an easy example for this one. We hear it a lot of times. We talk about marriages. It's easy sometimes to be in the mundane routine and everyday life of marriage, and the interest seems to be declining instead of peaking. And you look over here, this seems more fun. It seems like Marianne across the street got everything that your wife don't have at home, that she do everything that your wife don't do. She more friendly. She's this, but she ain't got to put up with you every day. That's why she's friendly. But you know, and I remember a chaplain used to make this statement. He used to say the grass just might be greener on the other side, but somebody has to do the upkeep. You know, uh, and 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 I'm gonna share them since it's just the two of us. Tonight. The other one I think about like manipulating interests, right? When I think about competing interests, is sometimes we will put something on a table, because and because we want people to vote on it, we want people to see it a certain way, we want people to buy into it, and and that manipulative interest benefits you. But instead of being upfront with that, we put these things out, and and just like thinking of the conflict of interest concept, right? Like, hey, I don't think you should be a politician giving out contracts to companies you got a stake in. To me, that's a conflict of interest, you know, or your your spouse being under your command in the military, right? And then of course, they're getting the better. They're not getting put on detail, and of course, they're getting better opportunities. You got power and control over that. It's why that's not allowed, right? Because that's a conflict of interest. And you hit on my primary thought, and I'm glad you did because it let me know I was on the right track. And that's just like the shared focus interest, right? Um, I always when and I know when Paul mentions this in Philippians 3, he's talking about focusing on the Father, focusing on the kingdom. He's talking about, but the way he words it, he says, not that I have apprehended anything. He says, but this one thing that I do, forgetting those things which are behind me, pressing towards those things which are before me. Right? Sounds like shared interest. No, no, it's not, because it's one thing. It's that I press towards the mark. And I think sometimes we feel like we've fallen short in things that we're trying to do because we haven't given anything its proper attention. And when you got shared focus, both of these interests tend to lack something that you're not able to put into it. But that's my thoughts. I know that was a lot. My
No, I think it was good. I like the way you painted that. I think for me, it's a very easy, and I'll start with the example first. The example that I have, because I think the example kind of makes it make sense. If you ever go to court and you have to go through jury duty selection, one of the things that they're trying to ascertain during the questioning is to determine whether or not you have the ability to be objectively honest during this particular hearing. And so they ask you a series of questions, those people who are going through selection, and anything that you may have that might be, as you said, a conflict of interest, then you will be, not selected for jury selection. And I think for me, that kind of makes it make sense. And when we take it from that arena and take it to other arenas, I think now the picture becomes clear. And it's to your point, you talked about focus and you had a single point of focus. I really like that. Well, that single point of focus must do some things. And I don't want to get ahead of myself and ask another question, but I think I may because it kind of continues to unpack this. That single point of focus should be my focus, and I have to be objectively clear on that focus. Now, the question I want to ask you in regards to that, um, is there a way, because you have to understand we all have our own internal biases. And on top of that, not just biases, we also tend to give ourselves more grace than what we would give someone else. So, how can I look at me, look in the mirror, and determine whether or not I have competing interests in the thing, whatever thing, it doesn't really matter what the thing is.
a part of me want to say that is easy, but I think some of us are used to being busy, so it can become complicated, right? Because focusing on one thing, sometimes you get tired and you want to refocus. All right. I think there's a difference between having a hobby and having a thing that kind of gets your mind away from the thing you focus on so you can refresh and get back to it. But if you got two projects going on at the same time, you know, you some guys out there think they need to have two girlfriends at the same time. All right, it, it, it's it, it- it's simple in that aspect, right? But sometimes I think we take on so much because that may we may say like, well, That's my person. I hear people say all the time, "Oh, that's my burden that God gave me to, take on every other people's burdens." And you trying to handle a whole bunch of things at one time, right? You can't do it. You you can't take on their burdens. You can help them bear. Like that's the thing that we're called to do as a community, not you as an individual, right? Trying to be a fixer, and so you have to be able to give yourself, and this how I look at it. You have to be able to give yourself that rest time so you can have reflection time in your day and in your life, so that you can carve out time to look in the mirror. You can carve out time to meditate, carve out time to pray. I think when these elements we talk about all the time, I don't think we really understand how important it is. Like that meditation, that prayer time, that quiet time is it does serve as a reflection time. And as I sit there and I start to think on all the things that I got going on, then my question is, why do I have all these things going on? What is the one thing that is going to push me forward to allow me to be accessible in these arenas, but not necessarily taking them on? I hope that made sense.
No, it did. It made a lot of sense. Um, and trying to extract from what you said, because you said a lot, and I greatly appreciate not only what you said, but how you said what you said. Um, recognizing that busy is not necessarily the way. Giving the impression that you're busy is definitely not the way, because the impression of a thing and the thing is not the same thing. That's one of the things that we have to understand. But I also believe, adding to what you're saying, there has to be some evidence that I can see to where it shows me what my true focus is, right? Um, if there is no evidence, then I have to be an honest broker of myself. But then when I have relationships with people, they have the autonomy to be honest with me based upon what they're observing as well. And I should take that as information, right? I should be able to take what, Brother Gaddy tell me about what he observed in me as information to observe what it is that I'm doing so I can make the necessary changes within myself. I think we live in a time and space to where people don't want to hear anything that they perceive to be negative. Well, if it's objective, it can't be negative. It's just it is what it is. You may view it as negative, but at the end of the day, it's just something that I observe. So I'm sharing it with you so that you can take a look at yourself and move in a different way according to the thing that you say that you're focused on. And I think that's one of the issues that we run into. We'll say I'm focused on this thing, but unfortunately you don't have the relevant evidence to say that you have that focus. Sure, you may be doing some things, right? That's like saying, okay, well, and I'm just going to use this show as an example. When we decided a few years ago that we was going to do the show, if I did not put forth the effort to ensure that we got to the point of doing the show, then at the end of the day, I can't say that I was focused on doing the show. Sure, we had a great conversation, but what did that conversation materialize into? And I think that's what we have to take a look at. We have to look at what does your focus, your lip service, and your deed produce in the direction of the thing that you're focused on. So I love that. I love that. Um, bring up Lisa's statement because I love what she said here. And so Gaddy, you gave the example. A man having two, being married and having a girlfriend at the same time. Well, just as she said, competing interests in a marriage when a wife wants to lead with the husband, discouraging kingdom order. And I won't necessarily say lead with. Lead with is more right than lead the husband. And so I think that's really what she meant, that the wife wants to lead the husband. That's more in error as it pertains to the kingdom mindset. Go ahead, bro.
No, I agree, because that was actually my point of comment. I think we were talking last time I brought this up. One of the things the Most High allowed me to see a long time ago in Genesis, when we look at what we call the fall of man, right? That's how we label that story. I found it interesting, if you go back and you read it, how he set back in order that which they took out of order, right? Because She could have led with her husband by just simply quoting what the father said and left it alone and never responded back. I'm not going to entertain this conversation no more. She didn't lead the husband and she didn't take a position over him because she's leading with him, understanding that this is the direction that he was given to for us in this garden. Uh, but when she gave in and then she turned and gave to the husband and ruled, and she began to now rule over him in that aspect. So now father comes back around and he says, for you will have travail and childbirth. He says, and now your crave shall be for your husband and he shall rule over you. That wasn't the curse, that was the resetting of the order. I know we don't like the word rule, right? That's the word they chose in the English, but we when we understand the character of the Most High, when we understand what that means, we understand what that looks like. So no need to complain or fight about that. But that's that's right along with with what you were saying. And once you distort or disregard the order of God, is autumn. And I like that she brought that there because just taking that, people don't realize those little things. You just change your focus. Your focus is no longer on the kingdom. You saying it's the kingdom, and you may be reading your Bible, but when you close it, when you close those covers of that book, you're going right back to trying to lead your husband, and now your focus just switched from the Most High to yourself.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm locked in with that. So there's no need for me to add any more to that because I love what you said. Let's bring up Miss Verlene McCoy's question here because I think this is a good question. Can a person compete with themselves and use the excuse to being the way that they are?
Right. I think that's exactly what I was saying in the beginning. That I, thank you, Miss Verlene McCoy. That's exactly what I was saying. We do compete against ourselves. We don't look at it like that. We just call it busy work.
Mhm.
We call it multitasking. But no, you're literally competing with yourself. You're trying to succeed both things and trying to become great in both aspects, and you're causing yourself to keep up with yourself. How do you do that? You exhaust yourself and you tire yourself out. And that's why I said, like, both at that point, both of these things loses something. It loses some level of energy that you could be focusing on this. If I'm trying to learn the piano and I'm trying to learn the drums at the same time, one of them or both of them are going to be lacking. I'm not going to get where I thought I was going to get with them. But if I learn this piano first, and after I learn it, and I perfect, I can, when I take a break, I can take a break, get over there and play with it, just learn my time and practice my time and keep up with it. But trying to perfect it and no, let one of them be your thing of mastery.
I love I love this question. I love your response to it as well. And I like the fact that you took it to the notion of mastery. Because I think the reason why most people compete with themselves is because they have two different identity of themselves. They got the identity to where they're trying to be what somebody want them to be. And then by that same token in the back of their head, they're trying to be something else, whether it is what their parents wanted them to be or whatever that looks like, right? So now you have these two things going on at the same time. I want to be a good husband, but at the end of the day, I want to climb the corporate ladder. And if I really understand, if I really and truly understand, like I can be a good employee, but me climbing a corporate ladder and being a good husband, I can't do both at the same time. I'm sorry. Now, there are some people who are going to disagree with that, and I am perfectly okay with that notion. But if you know what it really takes for you to focus and climb the corporate ladder, for you to set yourself apart from everybody else, for you to really throw yourself at it, there's no way in the world I can really be a quote unquote good husband and good father. So I think that's an important one right there because a lot of times we mistake it. Like, sure, the job pays the bills, but at the end of the day, am I using the job to pay the bills, or am I looking at achieving, getting ahead, and being the center focus of attention at the job because I want to be, the company man, as some people like to call it, right? I want to be that. You know what I'm saying? I want to be the representative of the company. Well, at the end of the day, I need to have had a conversation with my wife and my kids to let them know, hey, it's going to be many days I'm coming home late. Even when I do come home late, I'm probably going to bring work home, and then find out what their response is to that. And a lot of times we don't have those conversations in that depth. We just decide we're going to climb the corporate ladder and they'll figure it out en route. So that is another way that we end up competing with ourselves, having competing interests inside of ourselves, right? And necessary, and like I read in the beginning, right? We like leave people behind, leaving collateral damage based upon the way that we move. So I really do love that. So yeah, let's kind of get after the first talking point. Listen, thank you guys for being here. Make sure that you hit that like button and make sure that you share it on your social media platforms so that we can actually get some more viewers in this conversation as well, because I think this conversation is good. So the first talking point is the silent tax of context switching. Now, that said, I like to remind everyone about the Einstein saying, or the Einstein quote: no problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it. When we splinter our attention across conflicting goals, we become architects of fragmentation, not mastery. And so the key insight here is the brain treats unresolved conflicts like open browsers, draining cognitive resources even when not actively engaged. I say that part again because that's something that we need to understand. The brain treats unresolved conflicts like open browser tabs, draining cognitive resources even when not actively engaged. And so I think that's important for us to understand, because the next time that you decide you want to do this and do that and volunteer for this and volunteer for that, and you just can't tell a person no when they ask you to do something, well, keep in mind that every time you do a yes, you're taken away from something else. Every time I say yes, I'm taken away from something. So, first question here is, how can we recognize the moment our focus splinters? And what daily ritual could rebuild our capacity for deep focus? Now, I think you started giving us some daily rituals earlier. But again, I would really like for you to go back over that again. And again, I want to read it again just to give you time to process it. How can we recognize the moment our focus splinters? And what daily ritual could rebuild our capacity for deep focus?
Man, actually, I love this question actually. Um, so for me, right, and I have to go for me because I'm not the professional mindset coach here, uh, but and there's an initial overwhelming that takes place in your mind that you have to mentally make space for when you start taking on too much, right? Because my focus is here and this is what I'm doing. When this new thing comes in and begins to splinter my focus or separate my focus, there's an overwhelming feeling that comes on. Like, I've dedicated so much of this time, and now I'm trying to figure out when I'm going to find time to do this other thing. Now the question is that thing that important that you have to give it the time that you're giving this thing you've already been doing? I think for me, that's how I notice. Because once I get into that deep thought about something and it starts giving me that overwhelm, well, because it's trying to compete with my time, it's trying to compete with my focus that I already have for this thing. And if this is the thing that if I'm switching focus, now I think some people have that, and that might come up later, so I don't want to jump over there. But some people have a problem with constantly switching focus, maybe not competing, but abandoning and jumping to something new before you finish one thing. But that kind of came. I thought about that when you were reading that thought of how the mind treats unresolved conflict as open browsers. Stop jumping from one thing to the other. Close this out first. Let's get to a point with this that I'm able to move on to something else. Not that it's still lingering. Um, and so like I said, to stay on topic, that's my point. Is that overwhelming, overthinking. How do I put pencil this in? Where do I find time to do? You don't. You don't have to take time and find out. How about you think about whether or not it's important enough at this moment? Can it be put to the side? Maybe the answer might be it has to take the place of this other thing for now. Maybe that might be the answer. Not saying it's never the answer. That might be the answer, but one of them has to be the precedent. Um, and so just some daily routine. I find it better in the morning. It's harder sometimes in the morning if you're not already doing something, getting yourself up earlier than you're used to getting up, because you don't have to carve out time to get ready in the morning to find that prayer and meditation time. Create more time. Wake up a little bit earlier. Trust me, your body is going to reset when you get up. You just gotta get up and get moving. Get in that quiet place. Get in that place where you can just decompress. Sleep helps you decompress. But now, as you get in your focus, as your mind is starting to grab what's the word? Become cognitive again. I'm gonna say it that way, right? As your brain begins to become cognitive again during the day, you you shouldn't think on anything. Just sit and meditate and think on him, think on his word. Let him refresh you for that day, and in that it will create space in your mind to be able to lock in, to be able to focus. I could use you. I don't know nothing about real estate, but I'm gonna use Sister Lisa like I do, right? You know, she got a property that a client wants her to sell. And I know sometimes she might have two or three, right? She might have that split focus by the nature of the uh, of the job. But after she comes off that meditation and that prayer moment, now she can lock in and she can go over her strategy in her mind of how she's going to get this thing on the market, how she's going to get seen, who when she's going to go take the pictures, all these things she has to play out, right? Now it's easier to think on it because you've allowed your mind to be cleared and allowed yourself to be centered and regrounded for the day. I think we could reground ourselves every day.
I love your response. When I look at this question, I'm thinking two things. I'm thinking what I planned and what showed up as an opportunity. So when I look at what I actually have planned, ideally I plan according to what my focus is, what my, goals are, what my vision is, whatever that looks like, right? And so if I planned out my day, then I know the things that I actually have planned are within line with what I'm focused on doing. But I also believe that sometimes, there are things that we include in that plan that may not necessarily be a part of the thing that we're focused on. So in that moment, a couple of things. There can be some internal cues that I may actually have set up, predestined mind set, right? I set my mind to recognize certain things. Um, but I can also have some external observers as well. And those external observers are kind of like guardrails for me within the scope of my own plan. And so when they observe me taking time out to do a particular thing that does not necessarily that does not necessarily fall in line with the thing that I'm focused on, they can have a conversation with me. I think that's a real clear cut and easy one to observe. Um, but I also believe that asking myself a very intentional and appropriate question in the midst of the thing can kind of snap me back into it as well. How does this serve the thing that I'm working towards? Because when we ask that very honest question, we now require a very intentional answer. And sometimes we can ask ourselves the question, but we don't stick with the question long enough to demand an answer. Asking the question is good, but the answer is the thing that you're seeking. So stay in the question to demand an answer. That's based upon things that are planned. But what about things that happen by happenstance? Gaddy just stopped by the house and say, "Hey man, let's go to the go to the sports bar, whatever the case may be." And I'm working on something. And I'm like, you know what? I can walk away from this for a moment and go to the sports bar. Well, now Gaddy just now contributed to my delinquency, right? Not only And I'm not a minor, so I left that part off intentional. Not only am I distracted from the thing that I'm supposed to be focused on, but I got a partner in crime now. Okay. I talk about people all the time because I think it's intentional that we identify who people are in our lives. You got people who are for you, and you got people who are with you. You don't have to ask them to put themselves in a particular category. Their behavior actually does it for you. If a person is for me, then we're working together in a direction of where our focus is. It doesn't necessarily have to be the same focus, right? But if we know each other's focus, we keep each other accountable. If a person is with me, they'll try to pull me away from the thing I'm focused on every opportunity they get. And here's the sad part about it: if I allow them to keep doing so, they're going to keep coming back. But about 2 or 3 times, I say, hey, you know what? I appreciate it, but I really need to focus on this right here. Maybe later, right? And then they come back again. Yeah, I appreciate it, but I really need to focus. Man, he ain't no fun. Let me go find somebody else who I can drag along with me. So now, when I look at what I planned versus something that just shows up by happenstance, I now have these two things. And those two things that I actually have in each regard kind of helps keep me stable and keep me focused. I really do believe wholeheartedly that we devalue the necessity of the people that we have in our lives, because those people are, I mean, they're worth their weight in gold. And we should be that for other people as well. It shouldn't just be that I have people in my life to keep me in order, to keep me straight, and to pick me up whenever I'm down, and whatever the case may be. I should be like whatever I'm expecting another person to be. I should be that first. So I should be that person that is that guardrail for them. I should be that person that motivates them, even when they don't feel like doing something that particular day. Well, the way you feel will get you off focus. So it's like getting to the point where we put those things in place in our lives are monumental when it comes down to us maintaining focus. So appreciate what you guys are saying, man. I'm seeing them in the chat. I'm trying to bring them up as well. But you guys are rocking and rolling. Keep them coming, though. Keep them coming. His divine appointment said, we can recognize the moment our focus splinters by becoming aware of specific internal and external cues that signal a shift from productive attention to distraction. And I love that she put in parentheses me as the distractor, because that's one of the things we talked about before. The distraction is always external, but the distraction reveals the thing in me that attracts me to it. But once I get to the point of overcoming that distractor that's in me, now that thing no longer attracts me. So thank you for sharing that. Nick D said, in my experience, it happened when I realized I was tied into a lot of things, but not excelling at any of them because I was spread too thin. I was just okay at them, but not in a space of mastery. Absolutely. Lisa Keys says, when we stray away and identify changed behavior within oneself, we must recenter our focus and change the thoughts that are roaming through our mind. Absolutely. Verlene McCoy stated, I'm sorry, Miss Verlene McCoy, don't get me. She said, you have to stop, sit down, and love the hand. Stop, sit down, and refocus on which is most important and which one is time sensitive. I love the injection of time sensitive there. That's good. And then lastly, Miss Nodella Sacagawea Jordan, good to see you. She said, when I find myself struggling to complete tasks or to complete tasks, I though in those moments I splinter my focus. I immediately stop and tell myself to just finish one thing and then move to the next. Absolutely. All great responses. Greatly appreciate those. I'm sorry, bro. You about to say something?
Yeah, when we were reading, I think it was his Divine's comment, it had me thinking, because I can hear the the NCO that excelled in the military, right? And here's why I said it: because the military has given this false identity of success, right? Because sometimes it's the one who's always busy. Nobody likes to see a soldier who's not always actively engaged in something. And so if there's something going on, I'm gonna jump over here. I'm make sure that I'm involved with getting this done. This come up in the leaders meeting that this needs to be. You know what, Top? I'll take it. Just give me 3 soldiers. We'll get it figured out. Oh, you're a go getter. This is these are bullets on your NCOER. You got a year to put some bullets on his NCOER so you can have a new NCR to get looked at. And so we have this false sense that that's what success looks like. And this is to my veterans, because a lot of us get out thinking that we can multitask our life into success on the outside. It doesn't work that way. You can't. It like we've done it in the military because our op tempo is always so fast and there's always so much going on. But there's enough NCOs out there. They
Yeah.
could have done it, but you need that bullet. You're trying to, and I know how that feels. But when we're not in that uniform, it doesn't look the same. So when she said that, I wanted to interject that just in case any veterans out here, like, I started realizing people used to tell us we're so marketable, not like we think we are. And I'm thinking this might be one of the reasons.
Yeah. I think that marketability goes hand in hand with that level of discipline that we're supposed to have. Um, but to your point, I think the kind of like I don't want to say anxiety to do something exists. That's kind of like what I'm thinking, but I'm not sure if that's the right way of looking at it. But it's almost like an anxiety to do something. I remember there were times to where when I was younger, I had somebody teach me the busy walk. And if you ain't never seen the busy walk, right, the busy walk is a real deal. Like either you're busy or you're en route to be busy. So when senior leaders show up, if you don't have that busy walk, then they're gonna be like, "Hey, you, come here. I got something for you to do." So the way that you get away around that is the busy walk. But that kind of goes back to what you're saying. Yeah, it is a fast paced walk. Your head down. It's almost like you're charging forward. Like you're not making eye contact with nobody because you're focused on where you're going. But to his point, I think he's absolutely right. I think sometimes we create that internal anxiety, and I think somebody mentioned performance reviews previously. We kind of create internal, kind of like an internal anxiety based upon the need to be busy. Even, and I hate to say it, even when we're at work and we know good and well ain't nothing going on, but you get mad at somebody because they're surfing the internet or something of that nature. Well, give them something to do, right? Give them put something on their plate that they can be gainfully employed. That is evidence that we have a leadership favor. It's a whole nother conversation, right? But yeah, I definitely agree with that. Again, thank you guys for all of your comments. I greatly appreciate that. We're going to skip the next question and go into the next section. And the next section is titled Relational Physics of Competing Loyalties. And I think that's kind of perfect to where we were. A 2025 Pew Research study revealed 68% of men abandon personal aspirations not due to incompetence, but unspoken loyalty calculations, the mental algebra of who to disappoint first. Roomies, you are not a drop in an ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop. Becomes tragic when we fracture that ocean into disconnected puddles. And the key insight here I want people to understand is that competing interests magnify emotional gravity. The closer two priorities are to your identity, the harder they collide. I say that again. The closer two priorities are to your identity, the harder they collide. So I kind of want to put this out here, man. Put this question on the table because I really think this is an interesting one. When we say I don't have time to a dream, what unspoken loyalty did that excuse protect? And this is not an easy question. I already know it's not. Um, and I'm not trying to steer your answer one way or the other. Just answer it based upon whatever comes to your mind.
First thing that came to my mind was this is a messy question. Like you making me messy with myself right now. uh, when I say I don't have time to a dream, what unspoken loyalty that excuse protects? It's to be honest, the first thing that came to my mind is loyalty to procrastination, right? Loyalty to my flesh, and I say it that way because even though that dream is a desire, my flesh wants to spend my extra time sitting on the couch playing my 2K, watching my shows. When if this is the dream, why is the loyalty not to me? This is my dream. And if I say this is my calling, then why is my loyalty not to the Most High? Why is my loyalty to procrastination and to my flesh? Right? Uh, so I that's where my mind goes with it when I hear I don't have time, because it just yeah, it sounds like it sounds like like an excuse, but it it, it sounds like you've given yourself the out. You've given yourself, nope, I got this going on. I can't do that. I need to spend time. I need my downtime. I need this time. I need that time. But that goes back to what I said in the beginning. If I create that time in the morning to myself to decompress in the morning, man, at the end of the day, I go to the gym. That's another time. That's my second decompress time. All right. Yeah, I know it hurts to go to the gym. It sounds like this, but for me, that's zone out, headphones on, lock in. So when that's the first thing that comes to my mind. Like, I went straight to my to that's to your flesh. That's to procrastination.
I yeah, I agree. I really like this question. And I like the fact that when it before we got into it, it talked about two competing interests that are closer to your identity. Because I think with this one, when I look at this particular question, and I think for me, this particular question really captures something that is literally in our face, and we miss it a lot, right? The unspoken loyalty. Well, let me back up. When I look at my dream, whatever the thing is that has been placed on my heart, the thing that I'm pursuing, the whatever, the purpose that the calling that has been given to me, my future self is screaming out to my present self and saying, "This is who you need to be." My past self is trying to tell my present self, "But don't forget who you are and where you came from." And so, in between the space of my future and my past, I got two people screaming at me saying, "Hey, don't forget who you were and where you came from. Hey, I need you to do this. Hey, you need to do that. You need to focus on this now because that's how you're going to get here." Well, when I say I don't have time, what I am telling my future self is I am comfortable where I'm at. What I'm telling my past self is that, yep, I will never forget. So I'm really admitting to myself in real time that I have a stronger relationship with with my past self than I do with my future self, and my past self will keep me someplace in the arena of where I currently am. I may move to the left, I may move to the right just a little, and it may look like growth ish because something will change, but it's going to change by way of evolution, not by way of intentionality. And because it's not going to change by way of intentionality, my future self is still screaming because I'm ignoring. So the future self is screaming loud and say, "Hey, I need you to do this." My past self is speaking softer because he got my ear now. But yeah, man, we good. Don't let nobody push you around. Don't let nobody tell you who you need to be. All those different things. And a lot of times we'll put that into the atmosphere as though those things are good advice that's coming from my past self. Any information that's coming from my past is no longer profitable to the direction that I'm going in my future. It was good for that moment in who I'm supposed to be now, but I need to listen more intently to who my future self is calling me to be, as opposed to keep focusing on what my past self keeps reminding me of who I should be. And I think that's the thing because they're so closely aligned with one another. It's the same person, just in two different aspects of time. And because I can't focus on forward, or I choose not to focus on forward, it's too easy to look back and tell the story. Well, let me tell you about who I used to be. Let me tell you what we used to do back here. Let me tell you about. I remember Gavin. We was in the army, man. Let me tell you something. I remember back when Sergeant Johnson. Yeah, we do a lot of that because we're spending a lot of time in the past. But it's not so much as the amount of time. If I get to the point, and say it this way, if I get to the point where I spend less time reminiscing and more time imagining, right? If I spend more time imagining, then now I can actually see clearer of what my future self is calling me to do, calling me to be. and then I can start putting those things into practice now. Right? Spend less time in a relationship with that dude. That dude served his purpose. It's not that dude's a bad person. That's where I left from. Don't be like Lot's wife and keep looking back. Right? Look forward. That way, when you look forward, now it kind of keeps you focused. It don't keep me on that couch. As you said, what was it? What's the game? The game system you was playing?
Uh oh, my PS5.
PS5. That's what it is. Man, let me tell you something,
Uh,
bro. I'm so disconnected from games. I don't even know one from the other right now. If you had said Atari, bro, I would have believed you. I'm not joking. Um, but that wasn't directed at you. I'm just saying in general, right? Spend more time there than I do there because that'll keep me off of this. That'll keep me off my behind doing absolutely nothing, flipping channels, things of that nature. So that's just kind of like my response to that. Any other thoughts that you want to share before I dive into this chat?
nah, I was just when you was talking about that, because big I'm big on leave those which are behind, right? So I can press towards what is for. That's why that's one of my favorite scriptures in Philippians 3. Um, but I know some people listen, we've all done it. We've done it sometimes in the back, like, yeah, because I remember when we used to do this, and remember when we used to do in the military used to do this. We talk about
Mhm.
what it was when we were doing this, and when we were going to NTC, how it was different than what they do. Stuff that's cool talk. But I'm big on, like, yeah, there may be some brother banter that we may do for a couple of minutes, but the reality is, if I'm not going back there to get the lessons learned, so I don't make those mistakes again, what am I going back there for?
Mhm.
Why did I grow and evolve if I was going to continue to go visit the old messy man I used to be?
Right.
You know how the old preacher said, I feel my help coming on. I felt myself getting ready to get preachers. I'm gonna shut
I
up.
thought you were about to hit it, man. Hey, I thought you were about to hit it. But I think that's key. I think that's key. I think a lot of times we're too afraid. We're too afraid of the future and who the future is calling me to be. It's challenging. It's it's intimidating to a certain degree. This is easy from the past to who I am now because I've already walked that path before. I can vacillate between an aspect of who I used to be and who I am right now. That's easy. I've already walked that path. But this is uncharted territory. This is where I'm called to be. And the interesting part about this is all faith territory here. All of it is faith territory. That's why it's so challenging because you've never seen it before. You've never experienced it before. And then there's this little voice in the back of your head that says, well, what if I fail? What if I fail? What if I fail? Then I say, tell that thing, that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to fail forward, right? Every hint of perceived failure gets you closer to success. But we're too afraid to hit that first hit of perceived failure. Charge forward and fail. In fact, fail boldly. Don't just halfway fail, fail all the way. That way you can learn all the lessons at once. That's just my thing. That's just my take on it.
And I know you're saying fail, and I'm hearing fail at the same time. And the reason why, and it was good about this. The one thing I sucked at in track, reason why I think my coach wanted me to do cross country and I quit, was was not because I wasn't fast. I had a problem at the end of my races. Guys, I was faster than I was beaten. I wonder why they would clock the tape faster than me. How? When I know I'm in front of them, because they have this thing that they do at the end when they're not afraid to fall.
Mhm.
They lean into it because they know if I lean into it, there's a chance that I'm gonna fly ahead towards success. I'm pushing that momentum. So if you're gonna fall forward, I promise you. I know he said fail forward, but you fail after you fall. So
Mhm.
when you fall forward, that's the inch difference between success and failure.
Yeah.
So I think that was good. I like that.
Yeah. I agree. Like I said, I like what you said as well. Because again, now you're talking about see what I heard you just talked about was momentum. And part of that lean, that lean, you're using your momentum to make sure that no one beats you. Like you don't want to take the race for granted. right? So even after you've done all you can, when you get to that finish line, that's that lean forward, right? And that lean forward ensures that, hey, okay, it looks like I'm winning, but let me just make sure. So I like that. I like that. Nick D and Lisa Keys, listen, greatly appreciate the support. Just in case you guys didn't know, anything that's given to this channel kind of is recycled back. And again, it allows us to do certain things like this right here. Right. What I tend to do is this is a new, you get a new one of these every show. We tend to change from different things that we're able to offer. And so it's because of people who contribute to this channel, stuff like that. So thank you guys so much. Way less than what you used to tithe in church. Anyway, let me Miss Charlotte Jordan, she made a comment. She said, excuses. Excuses is the thing that's the reason why we say, I don't have time for that dream. Absolutely. That's an excuse that we're making. It's comfortable to make an excuse because there is nothing that I need to do on the backside of the excuse. So I love it. Nick D said, loyalty to the way we have been programmed to live our lives. I was not taught or encouraged to dream. Man, listen, I can spend another 30 minutes on the programming aspect of this. Again, it is very difficult for someone, I'll say it again, it is very difficult for someone to teach you something that they themselves were never taught. So if they weren't taught the dream, it's difficult for them to teach you the dream. If they weren't told that you can achieve anything you put your mind to, it's going to be very challenging for them to tell you. I didn't say impossible, just challenging for them to tell you that thing as well. So thank you for that, Nick D. Lisa Keys said, we reject the instructions God has given us and adopt our own desires above all. Man, you know what? I think, and to your point, I'm agreeing with this, but I look at it just slightly different because everything you're saying is right. I think we adopt our own desires above all. And because of that, we reject the instructions that he gave us because my desires make me feel better than his instructions does. And going back to Nick D's point, that's part of the programming. The programming is to focus on how I feel, my own selfish desires, and then understanding his instructions take me outside of that. So thank you for that. His divine appointment says, when we say I don't have time to a dream, the unspoken loyalty that excuses most often projects is loyalty to our current identity in the status quo. Absolutely. Absolutely. Greatly appreciate that. Listen, you guys on fire. I greatly appreciate that.
I'm gonna say
And
that falls in line with that programming again.
yeah, man. Absolutely. And time is waiting on nobody. The forgetting variable of hidden trade off is the next talking point. Warren Buffett's 25 and 5 rule: list 25 goals, focus ruthlessly on the top five. This exposes a brutal truth. Every yes implicitly destroys something you claim to value. Modern science reveals that goal conflicts activate the same pain receptors as physical injury. Yet, 82% of men still believe they can quietly outrun trade offs. I think for a data point here, a Deloitte study found executives who acknowledged trade offs made decisions 5 times faster and with 71% less regret. So the question that I have here is, give me an example and reasoning for a seemingly small yes in your life that is quietly strangling a bigger yes we've been avoiding. And it doesn't necessarily have to be now. It could have been something in the past or whatever that looks like. And you can't say the going to the sports bar.
And I was gonna dig that back up. And the reasoning for a seemingly small yes in our life that is quiet. But you know what's crazy? We talk about could have been years ago. I go back to when I was a young soldier. Um, I went to this church in South Carolina in Fort Jackson, and one of the deacons there, he worked at the AG Walk School, and he was the guy who pulled packets. He was the guy, right? knowing and not knowing or whatever would have you, he used to always say, "You thought about warrant officer school? You in school? You in college? You ever thought about it?" And you know, and I kept saying, "Oh, I don't have this yet. I don't have my degree yet. I don't have this yet." He said, "You on your way. You know, you should put in your packet." And everybody's telling me who this guy is, and I know who this guy is. I'm like, by this time I know, but I and I don't know if it's a small yes, but my initial contract coming on active duty was 2 years. And see if I liked active duty, and I was going to decide whether or not. So I went into my reenlistment window immediately, right? 12 months after I got there, I went in my window. So I'm talking to this guy, and he's talking to me. He's giving me the plan. He's giving me the packet I need to fill out. Like he's trying to tell me, I got you taken care of.
Mhm.
Peak my interest, come do what you got to do. And I'm like, no, I need this, and I'm looking at nope, I need to do this, and I need to do this. The packet said I need to do turn in the packet, and that's what he just keep on saying. And same time, Matt Sergeant, I can't remember the Matt Sergeant name, but he was my reenlistment NCO. He was my career counselor, and he said, "You ready? Your window's open." And I look. I was like, "Well, I want to deploy. They're deploying out of Fort Hood. One of my three of my good friends I grew up with, two of them I went to high school with is at Fort Hood. I always something about the calf. A lot of the NCOs and drill sergeants I was around all had calf patches, and I was like,
Mhm.
something about the calf. Yes, and you know, I said yes. I went there, signed the papers, threw my hands up, put 6 more years on that thing, on that bad boy. Got me $12,000 that disappeared before I even left Fort Jackson. Um, I was young and dumb. I didn't know what to do with money, right? But but all in all, like I don't regret it. But the thing says, strangled a bigger yes, right? We that bigger yes could have changed. I could have still went to Fort Hood later. I could have still achieved something. I could have still had the deployments under my belt. I could have done some of these things, but I wanted. Now I'm not even gonna say what I wanted. The reasoning is real. I was afraid of that level of success. I never seen it. Not from nobody I knew or nobody that came from where I came from. I didn't see it. If I not knowing that some of the warrant officers and officers came from where I came from, but what I knew, they looked like brothers who never been there to me. We judging them from what we see now because we don't know where they came from. But that's how that, that, that's how I look at it. I was afraid to succeed, and so
Yeah.
because of that, I took the long route to promotion. I nope, I'm gonna go grunt it out, go here, and I did it in high school too. Major Torelli, my RTC instructor, he had connections at West Point. I know he had connections because the only reason why I got pulled up there to stay there for a week as a prospect was because of his name, because of him, and I turned it down because it's just I didn't think I was right. I didn't think
Yeah.
I was a good fit. No.
I had the same experience, believe it or not. I actually had my warrant officer packet filled out. I just never submitted it. But that's not the yes. The yes, seemingly small yes, that is everything that I'm doing that and here's the funny part about it. It's not that the things I'm saying yes to are not within line of what I'm focusing on. It's that there's a thing that I'm working on that I'm about 90% finished. All I gotta do is how you dig at it? All I gotta do is lean in. And every time I accept doing this over that, it pushes that to the right. And I tell you what it is. It's a book I have on my desktop right now on faith. Probably like at 150 pages. But again, it's at a 90% completion. And I just have to it's going to take me to take everything just one day and say, hey, you know what? I'm not doing nothing today but finishing this. And I'm just gonna have to do that because at the end of the day, I believe um, number one, I'm supposed to finish it. Number two, I had been supposed to finish it. But I just look at everything else that I was doing. I just kept saying yes to this, yes to that, yes to this, yes to that. So I said, hey man, you want to do this? Yeah, I'll do that. You know what I'm saying? Just stuff like that. And it's not that I don't have the intention on finish it. It's just almost like a level of procrastination because in my mind, I know I need to finish it. And I prefer to finish it here because I like to see everything big. That way I can go back and proofread, analyze, and all that other great stuff and walk away from it and come back and read the entirety of it again. Because it's always something that you find in it. Something that you find, I don't like the way that read. Let me change this up, whatever. So that's my thing. It's not like it's one thing in particular, but it's everything that I'm saying yes to that prevents me from finishing that thing. So I greatly appreciate that. Um, Look at his divine appointment says she had the one off thing too. She never turned it in. So it's interesting how we have shared experiences, right? Nick D said, my seemingly small yes is devoting more time to babysitting. It has limited my availability and lessened the time and energy I have to commit to projects that are focused on my purpose. I love that. Lisa said, my big yes is peace and moving forward from the past. I think of the habit and do not allow it to distract from the big yes. Okay. Greatly greatly appreciate that. Did I freeze?
I was checking. I was trying to check in the back because I'll make sure it wasn't me.
Oh, okay. Can you guys hear me? Can everybody hear me? If you can hear me, put a one in the chat.
It was more like a glitch
Oh,
in and
just for
out.
a second. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Can I
Okay.
can I
Yeah,
say
absolutely.
something on Nick D's? Because man,
Absolutely.
like, and I don't know if anybody else noticed it, right? Because I'm sitting here and I'm like, not a bad thing. My similarly small yes is devoted more time to babysitting. It has limited my availability and lessened the time and energy I have to commit to projects that are focused on my purpose. Sometimes doing what seems like you're doing good can be the offset. I don't know who Sister Nick D is babysitting. She could be babysitting her nieces for her sister or brother. She could be babysitting the grandkids for the kids. And it seems like we're doing a good thing. We're helping out family, but sometimes it's that good thing, that good deed. Not saying that is not. Yes, we should be doing grandbabies. Yeah, I knew it was one of the two. But I'm not saying that we're not supposed to do good unto others, right? That is a commandment. But there are distractors that show up in in the mask of a good deed to distract you from what you're supposed to be doing. And because it's a good deed, it becomes an excuse that's digestible. I can tell myself I don't have time to do the dream or to do the calling or to do the thing that I know I was purposed to do because I got to take care of these grandbabies. I
Mm,
got to help my kids out. And it sounds good, but sometimes we trap ourselves trying to do good.
mm.
Mm,
That right there speaks volumes.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah, I like the fact that you went back and touched on that because I think that's key. I think that's important. Like, and you're right. That's not a bad thing to do. But it's just having to understand when and where. And I also look at it and I get it. I get it. We're in a different time. We're in a space to where a lot of us as grandparents can be available. To where back in the older generation, 9 times out of 10, we lived with our grandparents. So it was like mama didn't have to ask for a babysitter. The only thing I had to do was go home. Somebody was there. Right. So I think, I think we look at those different things, different dynamics, different ways of being these days. And again, that makes saying no that much harder. And I think, I can't remember who said this. Um, I want to say it was Steve Jobs. Focus is not me, not my inability. Focus is not so much as me saying yes or me saying yes less, but it's me saying no to everything that I believe pulls me outside of the direction that I'm going. And it's important enough for me to do. You must convince me to say yes now. And I think, sorry, but times we're not in that convince me to say yes mindset. It's like if I just put something on a table and say, can you? And it's like in my mind, either I believe I'm supposed to say yes or I may exist in some type of, I don't want to call it people pleasing, but it can show up in that space. Therefore, I feel like I need to say yes. And that can be detrimental as well. But yeah, make it difficult. And I hate to say it that way because everything out there in the world would tell you, say, you need to be more agreeable. You need to say yes more. You know what I'm saying? But no, I don't necessarily agree with that. Like I think we need to be very selective with our yeses. Nothing wrong with saying no, and no does not make me a bad person.
I,
Um, look,
I learned that sometimes, and this may sound rough, right? But sometimes you are walking towards the right track, or you are at least on the narrow road. Because when you get on the narrow road, the people who don't want to walk on the narrow road will walk away from you to get on that wide road. And
yep,
so if you saying no means that, well, I can't talk to you no more. Even if it's my own child, my child's gonna tell me you can't talk to me no more because I held a standard for myself, and you can't support the direction or the dream or the call or whatever the case may be. Then that's where you're gonna walk. That's where you're gonna go. And sometimes that hits me to where I'm like, that I know I'm on the right track because there was nothing I did to that person. Is what I did for myself, and it caused you to walk away. Or I did it for my obedience to the Most High or to the Word, and you walked away because you didn't want me. You wanted me to be obedient to what you wanted me to do.
right.
And so when they walk away, okay.
Mm, I love it. I love it. Man, looking at this time, let's jump on. Let's move on to the next section. And this one is eco design systems versus legacy blueprints. Carl Jung warned, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." The average man juggles 5.3 identity roles daily: provider, partner, parent, etc., creating systems where interests compete because they serve different versions of himself. MIT's 2024 study, Motivational Architecture Study, proved conflicting interests arise not from goals, but from unexamined visions of who you need to become. The key question here, which is reflective in nature, is, are you building one integrated life or managing a Frankenstein monster of mismatched ambitions? So I got two questions here, but I need to narrow it down to one for the sake of time. So I think the one I want to ask is this one. Which of our current roles or titles no longer fit the person we're becoming? And what armor would you shed without it? The face, man.
I'm telling you, making me you being making me messy with myself, man. Which of our current roles or titles no longer fit the person we're becoming? What armor would you shed without it? Oh, it's this actually the first part is easiest is the second part, right? Sergeant,
Mm,
it's time. I got to go. It's let's put them stripes on in the closet, hang them up. It's time. Um, Especially being a guardsman now, I see a lot of people hold on longer than they should, and you can see people out there on Camp Maybridge or even down in the armories that they beat down. They can't really do it no more. They half stepping their
Yeah.
way through it just because they're trying to work their way to that 100% retirement, but it's like, hey, at this point, if y'all gonna give it to me during the med board, give it to me. If y'all gonna make me wait another 20 years, I'm not gonna work them next 20 years in this uniform. I know that. I know that for doggone sure.
It's gonna be the
However,
sorriest joke in uniform. Oh,
um,
man.
what armor would I shed without it? I'm struggling with what you mean by armor, but the first thing that comes to my mind is I'm going to shed the identity of who I've always been since I was a child.
Yeah.
I was a cadet. I was in the cadet corps. I was in our JRTC. Man, I was going to go to college for ROTC. Uh, been in the military since I've raised my hand at 17, going on 18. Like all I've ever been identified with was soldier. So I'm at the point now to where the day has to come. The day has come to where I can no longer mask myself behind the uniform. Who are you when you're not a service member now? Who,
Yeah.
you know, I'm a civilian and I'm a soldier. Now I got a civilian job, but it's still sort of masked behind it because the people that work with me, they know I'm in the military. Some people go look me up and they know my rank. So they'll come up to, hey, Sergeant, mess around, stand at parade rest. Like that's still a part of the identity of who I am. So I can mask myself behind it. When I'm talking to them, I can talk like what I know, which is a soldier. I can talk
Right.
like an instant, but what about when I have to actually fully become Mr.? Who am I? So I can't hide behind that mask of service member no more. Uh, and now I have to
See, your
create
armor was
my bad. Go ahead. Yeah.
no, no, I'm sorry. I thought you were finished. I apologize. I'm
No, no,
just
no.
listening to your
Mm.
yeah, I'm listening to your response, and your armor was easy. Like, because I remember when I was getting out of the army, and it was like, even when I was in the army, you feel different when you put the uniform on. It's almost like, and I used to describe it, it's like, and it sounds going to sound corny, I know it, so y'all don't judge me. It's almost like Superman putting on his suit, but then he take the suit off, he Clark Kent. It almost feels like that. You literally feel like a different person when you put that uniform on. So to me, like your description of armor, that's what I was thinking when you was talking about it. But see, mine's different. My response is going to be very unpopular, because when I look at this question, you know, which of my current roles or titles no longer fit the person I'm becoming? Black man. Like I said, it's unpopular. Black man, right? Because to me, that's a description, not a title. It's like when you see me, you can see that. It's not a role, right? It's a description. And so when I look at the armor, I'm struggling with that one because in my mind, I don't think there ever was an armor that went along with it. In fact, it was more like a magnet. I'm saying that for the sake of not saying anything else, if you know what I'm talking about. It was more like a magnet that revealed that I didn't have the protection um, that people who weren't have. So it's like I'm listening to your response in relation to the uniform. And I'm like, yeah, I get that. Like that's to me. But when I listen to mine's, like, hmm, no armor, bro. So maybe shedding that identity, that role, that ideology of who I am now allows me to put on armor because I don't walk through the world viewing myself through the lens as that. And you got to realize, and I can't speak for everybody else, but being raised in the South, that's who you were. Like that was your identity. Like I don't care who you are. If you grew up in the South, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You did not forget that either. But now changing the narrative, take it off. it allows me to put the armor on because I don't. And just being honest, it's not that I expect anybody else to forget that that's my description, but don't view that as my identity because I'm not going to allow you to view me or minimize me based upon your perception of that identity. That's why I say it's not a popular response. And I know some people they lean back like, "Come on, bro, I get it. It's uneasy to hear that." But I also think that going back to what we were talking about previously, if I am intentional about following and focusing my intention on the Most High and who He called me to be, then I don't have to be categorized because now when we start categorizing people, that's just as bad as religion because religion is divisive in nature. So, long-winded response, bro. But come on, man, give me what you got. I know you got something.
Man, I got a lot. I ain't gonna give it. Man, you, woo, yeah, you went there with that one. I and it's dope though. Is dope because though I understand the experiences that I've had, it's not because of my identity as a black man. And this is what I had to teach myself, right? Uh, and and
Mhm.
and you know me, you know my full disclosure, you know, in this aspect of identity. But when I started when I started looking at this identity thing differently, I realized my experiences are not it's not because I am a black man, it's because you see me as what you
Right.
think black man is.
Correct.
So I no longer give you permission to tell me that I'm inherently violent. Now we know these things are systematic conditions, right? We get that of why
Sure.
certain things are what they are, but at the end, that's what your perception of me is because how I look is your problem. I don't have to make that mine. And so I know where I identify. I identify with what this identifies me as and what this tells me to be. And that's what I'm going to do.
Mhm.
I'm going to walk according to that. And I get it. I know when I get pulled over by a cop, I know what he sees, right?
Yeah.
But I don't. You don't have permission to call me that or treat me as such.
But
I'm a
see,
child.
even that right there, just that right there, and I'm glad you said that, right? Because part of it is that's what I believe he sees as well. You see what I'm saying? Like, sure, the description. I know he sees the description, but do he see me through the lens of the description, or do he see me through the lens of a person who's been doing 75 and a 35? You see what I'm saying? So that and that's the long talk I had to have with myself. Like, if I did something wrong, then he's right. But if he just pulled me over because I fit the description, right? I'm driving down the street doing 35 and 35, and next thing you know, he do a U-turn in the middle of the street and start following me. Why? So that's my thing. Like the second part, I get, but the first part, like if I did something wrong, now I need to sense what's happening when he comes to my window. Because if he just do regular routine conversation, sir, do you know why I pulled you over? I'm like, yeah, man, I was speeding. I got it. And we start laughing. That means he view me as a human being. To me,
Right.
that's more valuable. You see what I'm saying? Because
Right.
now I can admit my wrong. We can laugh about it, and he can tell I'm still gonna give you this ticket though. And I'm like, I know it. Just come on with it. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's different. I think a lot of times, and I can only speak for me. I can't speak for everybody else. A lot of times when I was younger, I seen life through the lens of those things. Even if those things never happened to me, I know of people who they happened to. Therefore, now I'm looking at life through the lens of those experiences, and I'm believing that you're looking at me a particular type of way. Therefore, if that's what I believe, then to me you are. And I think in that regard, taking that off, just removing those and it's not and please, no one assume that I'm saying reject our experiences. That's not what I'm saying. I'm
Mm.
saying don't project them on everybody because everybody don't deserve it. You go to McDonald's, somebody's still messing up the fries, but that doesn't make every employee of McDonald's bad. Even though I don't really want to eat McDonald's no more after seeing some of the stuff I've seen. But I'm just saying, no shade. That's personal preference. Um, yeah, I know. Stop judging me. Okay.
That's what
I think
I was thinking the same the whole time. I was like 75 and the 35. You do that in Texas, you going to jail. Forget your ticket.
you're going to jail. Your car can get impounded. I get it. Um, Ms. Burley McCoy asked a question, and I think this is a really good question, especially after what we just got finished talking about. She says, "What if some people are unable to let that go?" And I know she meant that for the military, right? But I want to kind of look at it from both lenses, military and what we just got finished talking about.
So if some people is the person I'm talking to, right? Then my response is different if it's some people that I'm the person I'm talking to, or if some people is the person that is connected to the person I'm talking to, right?
Sure.
So the person I'm talking to, it's first off, it's why, right? Uh, I believe now my all my counseling I've ever done was in a preacher room. So there was normally some type of spiritual biblical counseling, right? But even in that, I'm just going to assume that is because that's where you found your identity. Now my question is, how do we get you to realize or to get connected with the Father enough that He can show you what He's calling you to be?
Right.
Because that is where your identity now needs to be. When you put on the identity through Christ, it would allow you to be able to move from any worldly identity, whether even if you want a civilian job, if it's finance, if it's whatever, if it's being black, if it's being woman's empowerment, man empowerment, whatever that is, that identity in Christ with the Most High is to me is the one that makes it easier to see yourself differently. I can let
Right.
this go, you know. But if it's people attached on to you and people hanging on to you and they trying to keep you identified as that soldier or as that person because they can't see nothing better, let them go. Let 'em- Some people have to be cut off to grow sometimes.
Mm. Well, then there's that. I think it's. I don't. I really love this question because I think in regards to it, I'm seeing what if some people are unable to let it go. Um, and it kind of goes back to what I was talking about my past self and my future self. I think the reason why they can't let it go, especially for a soldier, the reason why a soldier can't let it go because these are the most exciting years of my life back here. And I think the best years of my life are there. And so I keep going back and reliving that. I keep talking about this thing, so forth and so on. Right. I've done some great things. I had some amazing accomplishments. And I don't ever want people to forget that. And in most cases, like, you know, depending upon, especially again, talking military, people won't forget it. They may not have been there with your experiences, but that retired pay grade, you'll never lose that until you pass away. Now, I've seen some people who've done a fantastic job of disassociating themselves from it. Like, I'm good. I don't, that DD 214 did it for me, bro. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's the thing. Um, but I also see it from a military perspective and from a viewing myself through the lens of my skin or my gender perspective as well. Because I think those things are just as problematic. Now, they become more problematic when I start to project them on people. But here's the other thing about it: I can't make you come out of that. You have to want to come out of that. That's the other part. And so, if that person is unable to, it's probably just because they've never made a decision to. And until they make a decision to, they're going to be unable to. When they make a decision to, the first phase, they're going to be unwilling to. Then when they get to the point of being intentional about that decision, then the will now follows. And I think that's just kind of like how it goes. So thank you again. It's a great question. And I greatly appreciate that. One last section, man. I know we at that time, but we're gonna knock this one out real quick. And this last section is the reciprocity paradox in achievement. Harvard's 2023 Paradox of Success research found that 79% of achievers lost core relationships within 18 months of reaching a major milestone. Maya Angelou's "People will forget what you said, but never how you made them feel" becomes prophetic when success bleeds connection. True legacy lives in the spaces between achievements, not the trophies themselves. A contrarian truth to this is competing interests collapse, not because they're too different, but because they're too similar in their demands for exclusivity. And the question I have for you, my friend, which is the last question for the night: what legacy-driven accomplishment might ironically erase the very relationships that give it meaning? Right, I see your face. I'm gonna go on this one. I'm gonna go first on this one because I'm gonna go back to what I mentioned previously. I set it up previously by talking about being a husband and a father and climbing the corporate ladder. I think the issue is I can't exist in a relationship if I'm not giving something to the relationship. And I got it. Reciprocity does not necessarily mean the exact same. But if I give so much at work that when I come home, I don't have anything to give you as a spouse, I don't have anything to give my children in the realm of teaching and raising them up in the ways that they should go, then I am sacrificing you for the sake of my job. I'll say that part again. I am sacrificing you for the sake of my job. The only person I get the right to sacrifice is me. To whom I sacrifice is key. I should only sacrifice something about me to the Most High for the sake of you, not to you, for you, or whatever the case may be. And definitely not to a job that at any given point in time, they hand me my pink slip and say, "We don't need your services anymore." So I use that one because when I look at the reason for the job should be to get me started in creating the legacy for my family. But a lot of times, what we do is we pledge loyalty to a job or we pledge loyalty to something else and not realize that our families are suffering because of that. And I talk about this from the perspective of men because that's what men do. We work. When we get our feelings hurt, we go to work. When something isn't working right, we go to work. When we arguing and fighting with our spouse, we go to work. That's what we know. When Christ left the disciples, they went to work. They went back to doing what they did before he found them. That's what men do. And a lot of times, what we do is we want this beautiful relationship, white picket fence. You remember a Little House on the Prairie. I'm sorry, you probably don't remember. Little House on the Prairie with a house with a white picket fence, and you had the flowers and all that stuff around. That's what you want. That's your vision of relationship and marriage and all of that other great stuff. But then you commit yourself to your job and not commit yourself to your spouse. You commit yourself to your job and not commit yourself to the Lord. And so the issue there is those competing interests now put you in the place to where something is going to be sacrificed because you have not necessarily put the job in its proper place. And the job goes beneath your family, not before them.
Doc, you went there. You went there with that one because I didn't know if I was going to be correct with what I was thinking, but I would say, and it's almost the same thing you just described, but it would be societal's uh, identity of what a man is,
Mm.
and it's just right along with what you were saying because what's the name of this song? This is a song by Music Soul Child that he came out with. In the first line of the song, I think it's like "Teach me how to love," and it's like how to love her.
Mm.
Or, the very first line of the song is, "I was taught the true definition of a man was to never cry, work till you die." got to provide, got to be the rock for my fam and protect them at all means. But when I'm listening to that song, it's work till you die, got to provide was the sense of be the rock for my fam and protect them at all. And that's everything we've talked about, like through the last couple of years when we talk about the stoicness and all this other thing. It falls right in line with this idea of what the modern identity of what a man is. Like it's a legacy, it's a legacy success. It really is because but but we say we do it for our family and for our community, but where are we? The ones that are not allowed. You got those that are not allowed to be there for their kids, right? The baby mama drama. You got those who, who left, back in the day because whatever the welfare act, the ones who went and got milk and never came back. We got that. But guess what? The ones that are still married and at home are still not there.
Yeah.
They at work. They working overseas contracted jobs because there's more money there. And they ain't hugged their wife in 3 years. They ain't kissed their kids or spanked their kids in 3 years. Like so yes, they got a nice house, they got all the stuff, they go shopping, they eating well, they don't have a need. Life seems happy. But when they grow up and they get into relationships and they realize that they are lacking in relationships because they don't know the relationship with their father.
Mm.
They don't even know their mother's relationship with their father. They met. My parents been married for 20 years, but 11 of them he been overseas, or or he been working this corporate job and working all hours of the night and taking one more project. I'm gonna get this promotion. That's like when you get this promotion, you're gonna oversee 5 of them.
Right.
So and we can drop blame wherever we want to drop blame, but I would just say on both sides, because I'm as a man, I just be honest with you. If the man's in love and he wants to take care of that family, he's going to do what he thinks you want and you require for your happiness in that relationship. And I'm talking to the women with that. I'm like, I think we've gotten to it's what's so sad with today's world is that we're no longer content with actually making it. Hey,
Yeah.
we've made it. I don't my house don't I got a nice size house. I don't need. Why I gotta have a bigger house? Why I gotta go get a more modern house that costs double and smaller? Like why Sway? but but that's the life we live, and a lot of us, a lot of men are afraid that if we downgrade, she will upgrade.
So true. So true. I love it. Greatly appreciate your response. Listen, I greatly appreciate everybody's response in the chat, man, in the comment section. As always, man, you guys on fire. Like I say, you are a functional part of the show. We did go long tonight, so we're going to forego final thoughts. And just want to make sure that you guys know that we appreciate and value your time. As always, it's an honor to share in conversation with you guys every Friday night. Remember, every Friday night right here on 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we will have the Hearts of Men. So listen, as always, you guys continue to be awesome. Go back and look at this again. Right? Go back and listen to this again. I think this is a great conversation. And you're absolutely right. It is a double-sided coin. What is said for one is also meant for the other, because what I said about job, what I said about what he said about relationship also works the other side as well. So listen, go back and look at this again. Share it with somebody else that you think will get value out of. As always, we greatly appreciate talking with you guys on Friday. Again, as we always say, let the best version of yourself be a blessing to somebody else, and we will see you guys next Friday night.